Hello, tribe, and all you beautiful degens out there in Web3. Me and five of my buddies decided to start a company called Haka Labs and launch an NFT project called Tribe Kawaka with all of our friends and family. So we decided to get together again and talk about all of the great things that happened over that time, the trials and tribulations, some great moments, and what's in store for Tribe Kawaka in the future. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's jump in.
We've been at this for what, 2.5 years since we first got together and decided that we were going to launch Tribe Kawaka, right? This PFP NFT project. And there's been a ton of stuff that's happened between then and now. It was all Bush's fault.
Well, I mean, I'm stressed the fuck out. So go ahead.
Well, no, there's no reason to be stressed.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with this. Out of the 7 people that are on this call right now, before I came to you guys and we had that first discussion in the main room back in October of 2021, how many of you had actually bought a cryptocurrency or knew anything about crypto?
I bought an NFT. NFT.
Well, first off, Aaron, we weren't talking to you yet. Can we please stay in chronological order? It was Bush. You went to Bush. Why did you do that?
Yeah, so Bush and I were playing golf together one day in the summer of 2021. It was right after the 2021 DeFi summer in crypto. So I had done really well over like a 2-3 month time frame. And Bush and I are playing golf, and he saw my ledger, all the things that I had purchased, and I was kind of telling him how much I initially invested and how much money I had at that point when we were playing golf. And you could see his eyes light up like, oh, I got to get into this. And I don't know at what point I had mentioned NFTs and the fact that it's not just, a cryptocurrency that you're speculating. There's community involved, and there's IP and branding and all this kind of cool stuff. And I don't know if that kind of tripped the trigger for Brian, because Bush at some point, maybe like a couple weeks later, was like, hey, I want to get together with a couple of guys and let's kind of talk about NFTs and maybe ways that we might be able to create our own project. So that was kind of like Bush's first time reaching out to me and saying, hey, I want to learn more about NFTs. I think there's something there. Let's just get together and spitball it.
Bush, anything about that? Was that exactly what happened?
He's absolutely false on all of it.
How did it happen from your perspective?
No, exactly the same way. We were golfing, and I don't know exactly, Brett, when we started talking about NFTs. I think it might have been on the golf course when we were talking about it, and you were like, yeah, I don't know too much about it. And I knew obviously nothing about it. But when you kept going, I was thinking about, well, we know some artists, around town. We had Osmond, obviously Furno. And then I was thinking, because I'm a guy that tries to connect the dots, right? And, in the back of my head, I had Chris, let's put pieces together. And then I reached out to Brett and I said, why don't we meet in the man room? Chris came walking through the door and Brett came walking in. And that's how I remember us initially starting the conversation about NFTs.
I had a laptop with me because for some reason I always have a laptop with me. And I was just sitting there doing my work while Brett was talking and just listening to the whole thing. And, just the way I am, I discounted everything that he was saying.
Well, dude, you did not say a word during that meeting. I was like, he is not into this at all.
I didn't say anything, right? I was just listening. It was educational because I didn't know anything. I didn't really know anything.
I came to your house in your kitchen and you had your whole plan that that you drew up and then presented to Chris at McDonald's. Your daughter, right, Brookie, came home and said, Dad, do you know what these furry little animals are? They're the most friendliest thing, blah, blah, blah. And that's when it kind of came to you.
I wasn't very interested. But yet I remember another meeting was called and we went to McDonald's and you had the whole thing laid out. and it started to make sense as a business. It made sense, and I think that's when I was like, I think we got something here.
Yeah, well, it was about the same time that Yuga Labs and the Bored Apes came out and said that they were signing with a talent agent to get into feature length films, animated shorts, like movies. There was all kinds of ways that they wanted to utilize the brand, the IP behind it, right? So then we started thinking about cartoon characters, and it would be awesome if somebody could own one of the cartoon characters that were part of these movies or animations. And we started thinking about the fact that every great cartoon has a nemesis. They have the bad guy in the story, right, that they can fight and have these adventures with. And the Bored Apes didn't have that type of adversary. So we thought it would be really cool if we created another IP project that was, the lore behind it was us being the underdogs. We wouldn't necessarily be the bad guys in the story. We would make the Bored Apes the bad guys, and we would be the good guys, and there would be this whole story that could be told around it. But that was in 2021, when everybody was talking about these PFP projects being IP, that there was more behind the NFT besides this digital cartoon character.
And you had so much of the story all the way there. It was very impressive. I think you nailed it. It was
I don't think you slept for 24 hours.
Yeah, well, once I had that idea and I kind of knew where I wanted to take it, I was like fired up about it, because I thought it would resonate with a lot of people. Like, people would get behind that story. I mean, we're from Philly, so we understand the whole Rocky lore and the underdog story. So we kind of got behind that. And then on top of it, in order to have a successful NFT project, you have to have a community behind it, right? And we have a community of in real life family and friends, right? Because we all grew up in the same town that we live in now. And we know hundreds, if not thousands of people through second and third degrees of separation. So we knew we'd be able to bring a community together. Now, whether or not that community knew Web3 and would want to, participate and engage and be like an advocate for our project, that was kind of the only unknown at that point.
But it was true, and we still have that strong community. It's amazing how our town is, and all of our relationships with everybody is so strong and remains that strong. And what we were able to accomplish is incredible.
I gotta ask, when people watch this video, do you think they're going to get dizzy watching Chris go like this the whole time? Boosh and Chris brought on another guy by the name of Chris, and he was going to be like our marketing expert.
I don't know. No, yeah, you're right. Marketing,
yeah. And he went to one of our meetings at the Man Room, and
didn't say a word.
I don't think he said much. No.
Then he went on a cruise with a bunch of people and never got back to us.
I'm thinking, all right, it's not going to work with Chris. We need to bring somebody else on. And that's when I started thinking about Aaron.
That was Aaron, but Kurt was already in.
Yeah, I was at that meeting with DeSantis. I mean, truthfully, how I got involved. I mean, Brett, I remember you or Dick, you and I were talking about this, and I'm like, first off, it made zero sense to me. Like, this is just it didn't make any sense. The words that you were using didn't make any sense. NFTs, this and that. And I wasn't in crypto. So the more, I guess, research that I did and, all the things, I'm like, it's interesting. And then we talked some more. And, you laid out the business plan, the secretive business plan, because nobody could know where things were going and all of that. And, it totally made sense to me, surprisingly enough, with NFTs. But
well, it was also a time where, like, at that time, you couldn't get away from the news, the positive news about NFTs.
So the research, it was all over the place. And, like any business idea, if it's, if there are people that are buying this stuff and there's a market value out there, which there is, it was, plus I get to do something with all my friends. My thing is I build stuff, build businesses in the past, and being able to, look in your rear view mirror and say, hey, check this out, check what we did. And the ability to do that with, my friends, why wouldn't I want to jump to that? It's not just 6 of us that are friends. We have, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people that are our close friends that believe in the same thing.
Before we get to our first in real life event, which was the kickoff meeting at Miles Technology, Haka Labs, let's go through the last 2 founders that come on board, and then we got to introduce Dante, because Dante's been integral to this whole thing as well. So Furno was last. He is Broba. His real name's John Furno. But before John came on board, it was Aaron Friedman who came up with the name Chef X. So Aaron, why don't you tell everybody how you became a part of this project?
I don't know if I fully came up with Chef X. It was more of the childhood thing, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
You called me, Brett, not initially not to ask me to be part of the company as a co-founder, but you were picking my brain on the project because you were about, I guess, to pitch to the community. I think by the time you kind of got to me, you knew what you need to do to kind of grow this and to bring in the community members, like, from Medford and everybody's relationships, friends, family, and whatnot. And just you and I having a relationship. I mean, obviously we went to high school together, asking me my experience with NFTs and crypto. Now, at that time, I was educated in NFTs, did not own one. I wasn't fully sold. And then, just after a lot of conversations, you kind of came back to me and said, hey, why don't you be a part of this? You shared the story with Chris, right? Chris was the other guy. And you said, I want you to be a part of this, but none of the other founders know who you are. And so I got to spend an evening out with Boosh and Chris.
We're at the rooftop bar and we don't know what Aaron looks like. So we're guessing, like, all right, is it this guy that's coming up now? Is it? And then like Scott Bakula walks up.
And my first impression of the other founders is, okay, these guys like to have fun. And I'm starting to give, again, not in a salesy way, but just like a little background so you know who I am. And right away, Chris, out of his mouth, he's like, listen, there's no business here tonight. We're having fun.
Right.
And he starts
you want a
throwing
car
the shot.
bomb?
Furno story, man. Because I haven't heard this one.
No, I was
Go ahead.
creeping in the wings, and then Brett came. I don't know if you called me or you just showed up, and you were like, "Yo, man, do you know who the Bored Apes are?" I was like, "Yes." You're like, "You know what NFTs are?" I was like, "Yes." And you're like, "I knew I should have come to you first." And I was creeping around in NFTs. I bought an NFT, cool one too. I wish I kept it. Rhymes Like Dimes was the artist, but I was definitely in the art side more, not the like character PFP type of NFT. But I definitely knew what was going on in that space. I was with you at the office is when we took the thing and made it a tribe called Kawaka.
Yeah, did we come up with ATCQ that night?
Yes, that night. Yep.
All right. So we knew that that we wanted to make it a Kawaka. That was going to be our animal for this PFP project. My daughter, like Aaron had mentioned, came home and was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of a Kawaka?" And it just so happened I was on my laptop trying to find an animal that we could use for this project. So it was like kismet. It's just destiny that she would come in at that time. So made sense to go with a Kawaka. And then you learn about the fact that it's very friendly. It takes selfies with you. It's just a really cool marsupial off the coast of Australia. So it made sense, right? So when me and John got together, we were talking about a potential name, and then kind of spitballing what we thought this character could look like, right? Because at that point, John, you had never done generative art. We had, how many people you think went to that event? It was December 9th, 2021.
Yeah, and it was definitely a tribe event, although the building was rented to the tribe for $0. But I think it was December what, 9th or 11th or
December 9th.
December 9th. Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
boy, I mean, that was packed. I mean, there had to be 300, 400,
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of people.
It was
Yeah,
it was right.
it was
I remember
300
it was
plus.
right. It was right at 400. It was right around 400. I think it was like just shy of 4. It was packed.
That whole night was a story in itself because that was the first time I met Aaron. And then I think he lost his luggage on that trip up, and he had to.
Yeah.
He found the
Did it
only
buy new skinny
merry-go-round.
jeans.
He found
Did
the
it buy
only
new skinny
merry-go-round
jeans.
that's still open from 1985, and he got himself some jeans and a leather shirt or something.
Leather
A leather shirt.
We had everybody sign an NDA. If they hadn't signed an NDA when they came into the building, we checked and had them sign before they went into the back to hear what we were going to be doing. It was very hush hush in the very beginning because we really didn't want, I mean, at the time looking back, it's probably like we probably didn't have to do all of that, but I don't know if it kind of added to the intrigue because people were like, I got to sign an NDA just to hear what you guys are going to do.
I think it definitely added to the intrigue. I think it added to the attendance. I mean, really, we pulled it off. Nobody knew what we were going to talk about, right?
And we never told them what the animal was going to be or what the name of the project was going to be. We didn't do that until we released the origin story video on Kawaka New Year's.
No, the event on December 9th. You did.
Oh,
you
we told them that it was going to be Kawaka's, but
and
we
you
didn't tell
told
them the name of
the. You told them the beginning of the story and the nemesis and all of that. You did.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
It was
You're
awesome.
right. You're right. And we actually showed pictures of some of the NFTs, some
Yep.
of the potential Kawakas that were going to be in the collection. Yeah.
Yeah, you had
right.
a really good PowerPoint deck that you presented
Unbelievable.
beautifully. I mean, I was like, man, this guy. It was actually the first time that I got to see you do a full-blown business presentation like that, and I'm like, man, that was like. I remember I was impressed because you had everything there. You were educating on crypto. Like you winded way back. It was like crypto. Then it was like, what's an NFT?
We basically told everybody that there is, we wanted to create a community around these NFTs. We were going to give everybody that came to the kickoff meeting a whitelist for like a pre-sale of 3 Kawaka NFTs. But we did something a lot different than most other projects. And Chris, I don't know if you want to describe how we did the deposit and all that good stuff. I mean, there's a ton of stuff we could talk with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty innovative and smart. As much as we were, we were going in a Web3 direction. We had a group of Web2 regular humans in the room. Our community was our friends and our family and our co-workers, and we invited everybody because we believed in what we were doing. We were building a special community, and because they got in at the very beginning, they were going to be the ones to have a period of time to mint without the worry of it selling out and them not getting that chance. So in order to get that chance, they put a deposit down. So it was the equivalent was they were going to sell for $200 equivalent, but in Ethereum. But these were Web2 folks. And so what we did was we came up with the mechanism for them to make a deposit with regular old US dollars and put that deposit of $100 down for an NFT. And what this did was it provided the company with the funds to build out its future, like what it was going to bring to market. And it worked. It was amazing. We had essentially, how many did we pre-sell before we turned it on? We didn't pre-sell all of them, but how many did we pre-sell?
I think out of the 8,000, we had pre-sold about 5,800 of them.
Yeah, so about 5,800 of the people, or the NFTs, got in ahead of time, so they were guaranteed to have the opportunity to mint, and that was what they paid that deposit for. But that really made the difference. Then they minted. And shortly afterward, what was it, 50? How many minutes did it take for us to sell out of the rest?
58 minutes.
57.
58
57
minutes.
specifically.
57. There might be some seconds in there, but boy, was that the most joyous moment when we sold out and we were all at the building
What
together.
about the website crashing? In
No,
that
without
case,
Eric, we didn't want
We're
to bring
getting
it
ahead.
up.
Right now, we have over 2,000 in real life friends and family through second, third degrees of separation that are part of this project. And we got deposits 4 months before we actually launched. Like no other project would have been able to do that in Web3, right? Because they don't have the relationships that we have with all of these people that, you know, we don't just know through Web3. We know them because we've been friends or, you know, grew up with them or family with them for decades. So it was a very unique way about going about it. And we kind of knew that it would be really hard for us to sell out if we were only marketing to Web3, because there were a ton of other NFT projects coming out at the same time. So for us to get their attention in order to sell 8,000 NFTs, we knew it wasn't going to work. And to be honest, we really didn't want to go that route. We wanted to bring in a bunch of other people that weren't into Web3 or knew about NFTs and educate them about where this is all headed, right? So there was a lot of education that was a big piece of us even being able to mint come April Fool's Day.
I think one of the other interesting things is that, you know, we held in-person events to teach people, bring your computers, bring your smartphones. Let's teach you about how to do this, you know, setting up a wallet and how to mint and all the different things. And we educated them, and people really were excited about the fact that they got the education. My brother Mike and his wife were like so thankful that they had the opportunity to learn about something they would have never learned about. But also, if we didn't do that ahead of time, and let's say we trained them, but we didn't do the deposits ahead of time, and then we said, okay, everybody go do it. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have sold out. It wouldn't have done the whole thing. It was the fact that we guaranteed success essentially by doing an incredible amount of work up front. I mean, the amount of work it took with the deposits, with the training, everything that we did. I mean, that was when we burned a lot of midnight oil.
You said something key there too, in terms of the education. At the time when we were doing that, we were the only project in the entire space that was doing education.
And one of the things that got me really excited in the very beginning was I started hearing stories about, you know, friends where, you know, the grandfather was sitting at the dinner table with their grandchildren talking about NFTs, and they went through the process of, you know, how to get a Coinbase account and how to buy Ethereum and how to create a MetaMask wallet. Like they did it together. They were able to learn about this new tech and this new process, not in a bubble, but with a bunch of friends and family that they knew and trusted.
It was just an amazing thing to all learn this together, because as much as we were building the project, we were learning along with everybody and teaching what we learned.
We're teaching them the good and the bad, you know, certainly how to set up a wallet, how to buy an NFT, how to get ETH, all of that. But even on the bad side, when shit hit the fan and people were getting, you know, hacked for whatever reason, you know, we took it upon ourselves to figure out how it would happen, reverse engineer it, and then educate the masses on what not to do. So, you know, it was a learning experience for everything. And that's what I take. And the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of friends is, hey, not only did you teach me how to do it, you taught me what not to do to keep myself safe.
We do have a 7th member that is part of this call. Very quickly, we went from Dante is part of the community to Dante is going to be our writer to Dante is now an integral part of Tribe Kawaka. So I'm going to leave it at that. Dante, I don't know when you first learned about the project, but I'm curious to get your take on it.
Like right after where you just left off, January, coming out of COVID, my son and I were like, he was a junior at Shawnee, and he was planning on becoming a business major. And so he was looking for ways to just kind of practice, you know, creating his own businesses. And coming out of COVID, I don't know if you guys know, but like sports cards, baseball cards, hockey cards, all that took off again because people were just sitting around and they had just money and boredom, and they just started buying cards and things. So he was like, let's try to create that. So I was like helping him with that, and we were like buying cards, and he was trying to sell them, and it really wasn't going anywhere. But he was working at the pro shop of his hockey rink, and there was another guy in there who was a business major, and so he introduced my son to NFTs, and so he was like, "Dad, do your research on NFTs." So I was like, "All right." So I started doing that, and right around that same time, the Rangers had released a series of NFTs, which is wild to think about now, looking back. And then I started to see another community member, a guy named Dan, who was putting that thing out that you guys had on Facebook. Like, do you want to know about it? You had like this set thing, because I saw a couple people were putting this thing out. Talk to me if you want to learn about NFTs. So I just was like, all right, so this is like 3 times I'm hearing about them. So I called Dan, and he started telling me who was involved in it. And you know, he was, you know, like someone had said earlier, saying those words like Ethereum and Coinbase and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know any of this. I was not a crypto guy. So I looked into it a little bit, and then when I got the names, I knew Boosh, and I knew Brett. Aaron was like really close friends with my older brother. All of a sudden, I'm like looking at the people involved, and I'm like, well, these are just all really good humans. And then my older brother also had golfed with Chris at one point, and he was like, yeah, he's a really good guy too. So I was like, all right, this group seems like a tight group that I can trust. And initially, it was just my son and I were just going to do that $200 deposit thing. We were each going to get one. And he was looking into all these other projects at the time too, like Invisible Friends and some other things. And so that's where it started. And then I started watching the YouTube videos. And when I started seeing all those videos, and I saw the first kickoff event, and I was like, look at all these people. And then I started watching the silly skits that you guys were putting together. And then I saw that there was, you know, a potential for a story. And so since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to be a cartoonist and a comic book writer. And so I was like, well, let me just throw my hat in the ring and see if I could help. I figured maybe I'd be part of like a team or something. Maybe I could do an episode here or there. And so that's when I reached out to Brett. I texted him and I said, hey, I see you're having some kind of a lure with the NFT collection. Do you need any help with writing? And he just basically texted back, said, call me. So I called him, and he's like, I can't believe you just said that. That's exactly what we're looking for. He's like, I have this vision for this story, but I'm not like a writer, and I don't know I don't know how to do dialogue, like to make it like funny and do things like that. And so that's where that started. So, and then from there, I was content to just kind of sit in the background, write the story, and just kind of be, you know, in the back. You guys used to do Monday night status calls, and someone had made a comment about the czar. And so I was like, what's the czar? So I text Brett the next day. I said, what's the czar? And he's like, oh, it's a channel in Discord where people are trading their Kawakas. And that, like, being like a fantasy sports guy and being like a, you know, a collector, I was like, oh, that just took it to another level for me, because prior to that, you were just able to like get whatever anyone put on OpenSea. Once I got into the czar, that's when I got into like the community of it all. And then we started the Czarcast. Yeah, so that's how I got in.